should be fine. Alright, let's get this. Let's get this party started. Nope, that's not it. No, I don't want that. Ooh, I should be pressing that. Wait. Alright, let's figure out what we're gonna play. If we're gonna play something. Wait, no. Yeah. Okay. Nope. Oh no, that's me. That goes in there. Ooh. Now that's a possible. What the hell? Ooh. Okay, chat. Let's see what. Ooh. I should not be browsing this. But I continue to browse this. No, not opening that. Do I? Oh, you know what? Oh, okay. I know what to do. Okay, I'm gonna change, fix the title. Okay, that should change that. Okay, all right, there we go. Title changed. I'm gonna be discussed. I'm just gonna ramble on about Elder Scrolls lore, since I'm gonna be running. Well, I'm not gonna be. I've been running it off and on about Elder Scrolls. And in fact, let's just let's do ah. Oh, there we go. Oh, let me down here. Where is the streamer? Right here. I disappeared for a second. Let's see what else. Okay. Ah! Oh, not that. Oh, yeah, yep. Yes, yes, yes. This is. Okay. Ah, go underneath. And I need. Yes. Okay, let's move this here. That's too big for chat. I need to fix that. Professional streamer, guys. We're figuring this out. Okay, no, not you. Let's... No, let's... Can I... No, I wanted... If I can make this work. There we go. Fucking... There we go. Oh. Did that work? Was it fine the way it was? Yeah, okay. Oh no, okay, that should be fine. Let's lock that there. We'll move me over. here. Okay. I think this works. Yeah, okay. Let's chat. That should be fine. Okay. So, the campaign I'm running is based off of this system, which is Elder Scrolls Delvebound, which is unofficial, and it's just basically based off of 5th edition, which is kind of the most well-known, but also, in some cases, controversial. But, I mean, it does work. You know, as in the words of Todd Howard, it just works. In fact, let's change the BGM to be something more fitting. What is this one? Ah, no. BGM music. How was that? There we go. This will be more fitting to stream topic. So yeah, I run it off of Delvebound, as it's called. Not sure why it's named that way, but whatever. So what we can go into, kind of what makes it different from 5e. So core rules are adaptable for players and GMs to customize. Things are just changed to fit the lore of Elder Scrolls. Of course, races and classes are changed up. And in Delvebound, we do have some renamed classes, revised classes, and also new classes. So, one of the ones we've got, Crusader is basically the Paladin class. So you have your sort of armored, heavy armored fighter who uses holy magic, and then Cleric, as well as has been changed into Priest. And then we've also got some of the changed ones here. So we've got Mage, which is basically Wizard and Sorcerer. Ranger is kind of says expanding on the spell-less Ranger concept. This version Ranger techniques gained from the wild gives it as much customization as the 5e Warlock, which was actually the first ever class that I've played, first ever D&D. And you have the Warden, which is kind of like the Druid. Wolf shape has been removed from the core class, has been replaced with a new feature called Mark of Balance. And we also have Warrior, which is pretty much fighter, but pretty much fleshed out Battle Master. And then we also get other new classes. So we get Necromancer. So instead of having to be Wizard and then having to specifically spec into Necromancy, you just get that right off the bat. You get Nightblade, which is a bit of Warlock and Stealth. And then Rogue is somewhat changed up. Which we can also go into if we go into each of the classes themselves. Sorcerer is a lot more revised. So you gain extra magical points which is one of my players is a sorcerer, so he does get extra magic, but he doesn't regain it as much, which is also something else different too. Instead of spell slots, there's magica points, which is, you get a pool of mana that you use for your spell casting, which you can regenerate over time instead of having to take rests to restore your spell slots. Then you got Spell Sword, which says it functions as arcane counterpart of the 5e counter paladin, based off Eldritch Knight subclass. Spell Sword expands on the idea of being a martial type of mage, so it's pretty much in the name. You use spells and you use swords. Spell Sword. And then Thief pretty much is pretty much the 5e rogue. There's some other classes that are being playtested, but I'm not really going to include those. So they're not fully published yet, but also kind of a little bit different on what they do. So let's go here, attributes. So let's go over this page. So attributes are overall the same, other than having some being renamed. So strength is the same, agility is just dex, endurance just constitution, intelligence is the same, willpower is basically your wisdom, and then personality is your charisma. So overall it's just the same. It'll mean the same thing. So it's like, oh, do a personality check, you're doing a charisma check. Do a willpower saving throw, you're doing a wisdom saving throw, that sort of thing. It's pretty much the same, just with different names, but can also help in other sort of regards. So then we'll go back here. So magic. So yeah, we get spell points. Magicka is within every spirit and is the energy living within all beings. Instead of gaining spell slots to cast your spells, you gain spell points, referred to as magicka. Each spell has a point cost based on its level. Cantrips don't require spell cost, therefore don't require spell points. So you still get your free magic when you use your cantrips. Otherwise, yeah, you don't. Otherwise, you just have to count your points. So let's go with spell casting, kind of get an elaboration on that. So, and then to play off to actual, like, in lore. So Magicka is Magnus, and Et Ada, known as the god of magic, is said to be the architect of the mortal plane. And in this plane, as this plane known as Mundus was formed, he realized that the Et Ada were sacrificing much of their power in its creation. Many of the lesser Et Ada were vanishing, and as their entire aspects were being absorbed into the Mundus. Magnus immediately ordered the project to be terminated and left the Aetherius at a great cost. In doing so, he tore a hole through the Veil of Oblivion, through which Magicka of Aetherius flows into the world. Great left behind, the sun itself is known as Magnus. So in Elder Scrolls lore, the sun, it's a fictional world, so it doesn't have to abide by our rules. But what is basically the sun is what we know now. What we or in Elder Scrolls is Magnus, or at least the hole that he tore. So. We can go to this one. So, in their universe, this isn't like a star in the sky. In fact, that's also the same case for all the other stars. Is that those are actually holes torn through a layer of the realms. So, and basically, with those with those holes, that's how we're able to kind of basically pull out of Magicka. It's kind of like in the same sense how in Star Wars, you have the Force, and the Force flows through everything. But but you also have the midichlorians, which, force sensitive users, depending on how many midichlorians they have, are able to be more sensitive to the force. That's why they're called force sensitives. Both Jedi and Sith, and those in between, they are referred to as force sensitives due to their midichlorian count. So you get some like average Joe Schmo, like what is it, like Uncle Lars or whatever, just some regular dude, and he basically, he's like not that force sensitive, so he's just a regular guy. He has a low ass midichlorian count. Meanwhile, you have, like your average Jedi Knight, who is, definitely going to be one of those, like, oh, he's going to be the one that gets slaughtered by like the droids or by the clones. He has like a very higher end or higher mid end midichlorian count, and then same case for like a random Sith jobber, and then you get all the way up to like the Jedi Masters and to Yoda, and then to Anakin, who has all the high ass midichlorian counts. But in this sort of instance, the magicka that flows through the world, anyone can call upon it. They have to have the intelligence and know-how to be able to actually manipulate the magicka to use and cast through their spells. So a spell is a discrete magical effect, a single shaping of magical energies that suffuse mundus into a specific limited expression. In spellcasting, a character plucks away the invincible strands of raw magic from Aetherius, pins them in place in a particular pattern, and sets them vibrating in a specific way, and then releases them to unleash the desired effect, in most cases, all in the span of seconds. What the hell? Oh, whatever. Spells can be versatile tools, weapons, or protective wards. They can deal damage or undo it, impose or remove conditions, drain life energy away, and restore it to the dead. So yeah. Other than that other spiel, we get all this sorts of stuff. So we got spell levels, which is, the same thing as, any other tabletop. And then you have to have, you have also known and prepared spells. So, yeah, so here we have our spell points. So, and however many magicka points a character will have will be dependent on, however they make their class, whatever their class is, whatever their race is, and whatever their stats are, usually. But here is what we got with their, however much spells they have, how much, whatever spell level, and then whatever points it costs to cast. Rather than what spell, how many slots you have in this level spell. So if you have enough magicka, you can basically just like, keep shooting like first level spells a whole bunch, or cast like one really powerful spell and then like a little measly little spell, aside from cantrips, of course. So there's also so there's also the same sort of thing with components. So verbal, somatic, which I actually don't even know what somatic are to me. No. What's this? Okay, no. That's actually, okay, it's referred to the book itself. The book, the rules. So, yeah, okay. Here's another good point. So all mortals of Nirn, which is the world that the mortal plane lives in, are born with magicka within themselves. Magicka comprises every spirit. It is the energy of all living things and can be harnessed by anyone who devotes themselves to learn its success. This innate ability allows all men and mer to cast spells without needing a spellcasting focus, as they themselves are the spellcasting focus. So I know. So I know in um, other tabletops, especially like D&D, you have to have your type of focus, and that's what you have to use to cast your magic with. My character, my warlock, he had an orb, which is because of the whole funny haha pondering the orb meme. He had an orb, which is his spellcasting focus. Um, I also had a necromancer, and she had this like black crystal that she would use to cast her spells with. Um, and in some other cases they have to use like a staff, or they have to use a wand. Whatever is sort of is their default, but in this case, like, you can just cast it with your hands in Elder Scrolls, which is a lot more convenient, because if your character loses their focus, their spellcasting focus, they're gonna probably have trouble to use it. So we get learning spells, which in this sort of case you have to learn spells by focusing and studying. Magics learn, master through studying, practice. Some races, like Ultimer, magic flows through their bloodlines and lives in a culture that embraces the study of magic. Others, like the Nords, are typically cautious to magic's destructive side. Regardless, they all have magic within them, even if they choose not to use it. So anyone can be a spellcaster, but they have to put the time, like in lore, they have to put the time and effort to actually be able to learn how to use it. Classes that use magic, and some races begin with a set number of known spells. Each time a character reaches a new level at spellcasting, they learn an additional spell as noted in their class description. Any additional spells must be studied from trainers, usually found in colleges, guild halls, or studying spell books. So I do have areas that will have like Mages Guild members, or you can find spell tome books as loot, and which are items that you can use to read from to learn how to cast other spells, so that you're not just limited to like whatever spells you have, or that you can learn that's within your class. Spellcrafting, I have not really gone on much into, mostly because, well, I do have two spellcaster characters, or technically three, I think. We haven't really gotten to a place just yet where they are thinking of creating some of their own magic. So that's not really too much of a worry in that regard when it comes to the spells. So let's kind of just nope. No, I want to close it. Okay, whatever. Yeah. Let's see, initiative. That's all the same. Endurance, which replaces Constitution. So there's not really too much differences with the attributes. The attributes are pretty much overall the same. Just that some of them will have different names from others. So now we'll just close that. Currency, yeah. So there is just one type of currency, which is just gold. D&D 5e and other tabletop RPGs use like different currencies, but this is all kind of just very much just streamlined into one. So we're not going to have things like copper, silver, electrum. That's that's too much math. And I am Asian, and I did take like 3 algebra 3 times in a row. But I am not really a smart man's. So we're just going to go back to here. So let's see. So we do have different races, you know, very much differing from what the usual assortment of races from D&D have. So you know we've got all of these bozos. We also have additional ones, which are kind of the more lesser known races, or some of the ones that are obscure in lore that we never get to see or rarely see in like other cases. But most of the time it's just like all lore, like in lore races that like you can get from reading books or learn about from reading the in-game books or just talking with other characters. So, oh, who is popping off? Otacon. So we get ancestry, culture. So to name some what we have or what I have in my campaign. I do have a Breton, an Orc, and we've also got an Argonian, and we've recently recruited a Dunmer. So we've already got a bit of a diverse group. Ironically enough, we also got a group of characters whose races technically each hate each other in a way, because Bretons and Orcs have a bit of a rivalry due to the Bretons always sacking the Orc city of Orsinium, thinking that it shouldn't be in their country or in their province. And then we have the Argonians and the Dark Elves, who are always kind of at each other's throats, especially because of Dark Elves always capturing Argonians and selling them into slavery. So having a party of like 4 different races that each have like technically have like in-lore beef with each other is kind of funny to me, especially with the first 2, because they kind of get along. So there's not really any like bad blood between them anyway. So there are some different like different subcultures within certain races. So not all of them are going to be the same type of person. For example, oh, that's not. So for example, let's go to the Orcs. I have an Orc, but instead of a traditional like heavy armor, tanky Orc, he's actually it's called a wood Orc. So if we go to here. So, Valenwood is typically home to the Bosmer, who are the Wood Elves. Many tribes of Orsimer have made this forested province their home. Like other orcs, they prize strength and honor, but to the Wood Orcs, this means having agility and mobility as much as it does having muscular power and endurance. So they know that there's a benefit to being agile hunters and skirmishers as much as it is with being with like a big old massive hulking tank. So let's Orc. So we'll go to Orcs and let's see if we can find wood. Okay. So yeah, we got the wood orcs. So here's like an example of a wood orc in Valenwood. Be more of a lightly armored folk. So we'll go to the main page. So here's like an ESO depiction of a wood orc stronghold. Here's like a mine. Here's a sort of another stronghold. So you can see that it looks pretty much a lot like we have like the same sort of like main huts that they have, like we see the orc tribes in Skyrim have. But you know, they're kind of more, you know, they're more hunter-like, so they've kind of got more of this bone, like furs and bones and stuff as part of their outfits. So here's another kind of idea of a stronghold in Valenwood. So yeah, so my orc player already is a bit different from what you would typically think of as a as like a Skyrim, like an Elder Scrolls orc, kind of like what this guy is. So there are some differences. Like, so like there's not only just there's like wood orcs, but you also get wild orcs, and then we've also got city orcs too. So sometimes you'll have a sometimes you'll have like a city orc who's, you know, raised on reading books or something like that, and so they'll have they'll have the well-read feat. So they have a proficiency in either one of these skills. There's some other interesting ones. Like, let's go to the Khajiit, for example. We don't just get like the typical, like, oh yeah, the you know, like a cat person walking on two legs. We can get other sorts of different variants. So we get ones that are like this says the size, they look like house cats, so you know, just like what you would have as a pet, you know. But they're very intelligent, and they're pretty much spellcasters, and they're like, you know, around 1 foot tall, weigh 4 to 7 pounds, size is tiny. So what is it? They get compensated for size. You get 2 magic points they can use to cast spells. You know, 1 cantrip, 1 first level spell from the mage list. You regain all expended mana when you long rest, which is typically what you gain. I think is what you gain a certain amount back. Let me just go back. Spellcasting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah. So they are written. Yeah. You do gain back your points when you rest. Get Mage Hand. Lack of hands made you especially proficient in it. So you get to use Mage Hand because you don't have hands. Resistant to fall damage. Always land on your feet because you are a cat. So there are some downsides to playing as this variant of the Khajiit. So you cannot wield weapons and use tools. Advantage on saving throws to resist falling prone, but I have disadvantage on strength saving throws because you are tiny. Unarmed strikes deal slashing damage. tiny size makes you hard to hit. So you get +1 to AC and agility saving throws, but you do get one size less for your for your hit die. Carrying capacity equal to your strength score multiplied by 5. You can occupy another creature's space and vice versa. So, because you're a tiny, you can basically just like slide underneath someone. So you have the Cathay, great statue and strength, often described as jaguar men. So you're 5 to 6.5 feet tall. So I believe this is the okay. So you are pretty much like the Giga Chad of cats, Giga Chad of Khajiit. So you're like your big fella, or you get like good strength, and you have smaller ones, Dagi. So you're about 3 to 4 feet tall and you weigh 40 pounds. So your size is small, but you're not tiny. But you know magic. So there's also Ohms rat. They generally look similar to the Bosmer, although they have smaller statue than they do in the feline bellies. They often pay tattoos to resemble their feline heritage. Unlike other Khajiit, they have no fur, no tail, and no other distinguishable Khajiit feature. Interesting. Yep. Interesting. So, and I believe this is the race of cats that in lore Pelennor Whitestrake, who, if you don't know, so you don't know is this guy. He's this crusader, basically knight warrior. It's the Divine Crusader. And in lore, he appeared long ago, basically before stuff like this was actually a thing, like this kind of armor. So it's speculated that he's a time traveler. And he helped kick off the Elysian Rebellion, which was basically the rebellion of man against their elven slaves in Cyrodiil. And he kicked it off with the help of a minotaur named Morahouse. So we have Saint Alicia, who's known as the Slave Queen because she was enslaved by elves, specifically the Aelids. And there's a story where Pelennor was fighting. Pelennor was kind of going around just kind of slaying as many elves because he had like a great hatred of elves. He's basically kind of like the Doomslayer, but instead of demons, it's elves. Like this guy hated elves completely, and he found it's said in lore that he found some Khajiit, and he mistook them for elves and slaughtered them. So I'm guessing this variant of Khajiit might have been something that he saw and he thought that they were elves and killed them. So then we have the Panmar, who are the strongest Khajiit. So they're about 7 to 8 feet tall. They're big guys. They're big fellas. So they're aggressive. You know, these are like the panther type of guy. So you get powerful build, and you get aggressive, and then you have basically the you basically have the Khajiit that are like the bipedal or quadruped, sorry, who are your giant. Just these are the Khajiit that you basically ride as mounts. So, because pretty much that's what this strain of Khajiit here ends up becoming, because they're like massive, massive kind of four-legged, and they're pretty much very, very strong. So we have the Suthe, or yeah, Suthe. The more cat-like appearance, the high set ears and feline facial features, also long tail. So okay, this is the common breed. This is the Khajiit that you play as um, when you play the games. This is the playable Khajiit. What's this? Tojar, smaller than the Syntharite, and bipedal with digigrate legs. Usually live southern elsewhere. So yeah, so even with the Khajiit, there's like different ways to play a Khajiit. You could be one that's as small as a house cat, and you gain the benefits of having a smaller size and being more prone to magic compared to the other Khajiit. Or you can be a really big strong guy that's like 7 to 8 feet tall, and you can carry even more. Or you can just be literally like a big old saber cat type of Khajiit, where you're just on four legs, and you can basically become a mount for someone. Just tuned in. What happened so far? I'm just going over. I'm going over the Delvebound. It's the. Oh no, not this. This is the system I'm using for my Elder Scrolls campaign that I'm playing with Tav, Joe, Kralos, and also another fourth player. This is the one I've been going off of, and it's pretty much like 5e, like what we played, but with a few bunch of differences that I've mentioned before, like of course the different races, but also some different classes, and also the way that things are played differently, such as with magic, and how some attributes are kind of just named differently, but they pretty much work the same way. And I'm kind of just going over how there's different races, like how in pretty much, like, we'll just use 5e as example. You have your human, and then you have your variant human, and that's it. Whereas this, we basically have like we basically have like 4 human races, and one of them technically counts as a half elf, because that's what Bretons are, but they're still a lot more human rather than being literal half elves. They're just humans that are more prone to magic rather than being like jack of all trades, like a typical D&D human would be, where they can do just about anything they want, but there's one race that could do something better than they can in one area in another, such as we have the Imperials, who are pretty much what you would consider to be like the most human humans, because of how diverse they can be in whatever they can do. So whereas you'd have your Bretons, who would probably be your humans that would be more magic casters. You have your Nords, who would probably be your strength related fighters, and then you have your Red Guards, who would be your oh, I'm glad that did not pop up. And then you have your Red Guards, who would probably be like your fast fighters and skirmishers or something like that. But even then, depending on whatever things you roll, or whatever stats you do, you could still kind of go with whatever you want with what you play as. Like I said as earlier, there are orcs, but you don't have to just play like a typical heavy armor, two-handed swinging orc. Joe plays what's called a wood orc, which is basically a tribe of orcs that live in Valenwood with like the wood elves, or the Bosmer, and they think that agility and mobility is also good in as just as good as muscular power and endurance. So a lot of them would be like mobile hunters and archers and stuff like that. Which is he is playing a ranger, although instead of using a bow and arrow, he chucks javelins. Like he's literally been tossing javelins at like goblins and stuff. That's kind of what he was doing in combat. Which is also weird because one of his other characters he's played was a ranger. Which was Actian. So you had this giant stone man who would use a bow and arrow rather than like going all in and like going like melee or something like that, which is kind of funny. And then now he's picked an orc, and once again he's picked a class that relies on distance rather than up close personal. Although he does have a great club, which he has used to basically pulverize goblins with, like the one fatality Shao Kahn has, where he just like drops the hammer on someone's head, and then their head kind of like sinks into their neck, so that they're just like their head just sits right between their shoulders. He's basically done that, but with his great club to goblins, which is funny. It's pretty great. And like we said, there's also your different elves. 5e has elves. In fact, let's probably look at let's just kind of look at 5e races. Okay, yeah, elf. Yeah, so you get your high elf, dark elf, wood elf, just like in 5e, with some minor differences to them. So instead of the dark elf, who are the drow or whatever, like in 5e, the dark elves in Elder Scrolls or the Dunmer have a lot are strikingly different in there. So they're not like the underground cave dwellers that are sensitive to sunlight. They are gray skinned and usually red eyes, but they're pretty much like cursed elves. And of course, we've also got guys like Argonians. So let's go to Argonian. So they've always got like funky looking names. Kralos plays as an Argonian. He plays an Argonian sorcerer in the campaign. And it's funny because he plays him as like Columbo. Like he's like because his background was City Watch, and he chose the investigator variant of that. So he basically decided to turn his Argonian sorcerer into Columbo, which is really funny because he'll talk in the same way, where he'll do like the and one more thing. He'll do that sort of thing. It's like really funny. But we have some good funny interactions. Let me see what I can. And speaking of, there's we've been kind of like offhand discussions of certain NPCs. Where is he? Is this guy? We call him Sweet Roll Andy. So we were just having like kind of offhand discussions how there's this one guard in the city that Kralos' character, whose name is Walks on Thorns, where he works, and we could kind of like made like an offhand remark about him having about a guard who is known for eating all the sweet rolls. And because we mentioned like the Burger Andy and like other sort of Andy stuff in the server, we're just like, oh yeah, he's a real sweet roll Andy. And so we, after some other discussions, we're like, I think it was Kralos, or I don't know if it was Kralos or someone else, they said that they imagined a fat Logan Paul that was eating the sweet rolls. And so he decided to go into an AI generator and threw those threw those words in. And this, it literally came up like I turned into a token, but it literally came out with this, and it's like it's perfect. There he is. There's Sweet Roll Andy. There he is, guys. he's Sweet Roll Andy. We got a real Sweet Roll Andy here. Ah, no. I don't want to do that. Ah! Ah! So yeah, Sweet Roll Andy. He's real. Ah! No, I don't want that. He's a real Sweet Roll Andy. And not only that, Joe, who plays the Wood Orc, he talks like a Warhammer 40k orc, where he's got like more of a Cockney accent. So he's all talking like this, eh? Which is hilarious. Tav plays a Breton by the name of Hannibal Talbot, and initially he started talking like with him as a with like a French accent, because the Bretons are kind of based off of, you know, the Bretons, who are from basically France. But eventually it just kind of devolved into, no, well, not devolved, but it kind of evolved into a Cajun accent instead, kind of like what you think with what's his name, with Gambit. Ooh, about to make a name for myself. So I center this. It's already kind of centered. Ah. No. Ooh. Okay. So yeah, no, we've got our basic basic thing going on. So now with heritage, heritage for the future. So we've got some of our classes too. And like I said earlier, there are differences. Some of them have been modified. Um, One thing to point out is that um, a lot of classes can use hand to hand. I believe in 5e, you had to specifically be a monk to be able to use hand to hand. Like, hold on, let me check if Barbarian can do it. Okay, no, okay, Barbarian could do it too, but yeah, anyone that's like martial arts would be da monk. But yeah, anyone can use like hand-to-hand weapons, which aren't just using your fix. Also, YouTube fucked me over by not telling me you're alive. Jigging the virus name beer, no lime. I'm hungry, everyone is asleep, and I got 2 days to finish Overwatch Battle Pass. But double gum gain is live. Oh no. Not the double gum. Overwatch Battle Pass. That shit looks like the Battle Pass. Speaking of Battle Passes, I completed the current Fortnite one. So there's that. I also got like all their bonus stuff. So I got the extra cosmetics that some of them, like if you just complete the regular 100 tier, you don't get like all of the ones that are like matching the same colors, which is like weird. So it's like you basically have to do like the extra part where you have to get like 2 levels to unlock each item, which is dumb, but you know, whatever. Like, you know, I still think most games still need to follow the Marvel Rivals and Halo Infinite thing of, oh yeah, just you know, if you buy your battle pass, you can complete it whenever you want. Which Halo Infinite in itself is actually straying away from, because now they're like, oh yeah, so this new operation, you've got items now, but yeah, it's gonna expire. So unless you buy it, you're gonna lose out on all these items, and you have to wait until they're in the cosmetic shop for the it's for an in-game currency that you can unlock them later on, called which is the exchange, rather than putting them in the store for like real money. But that's still kind of dumb that the one thing Halo Infinite was doing so good was uh was having a battle pass that you can complete whenever you want. We're sorry to hear you're playing Overwatch. You get 5 common gobblegums, 5 killjoys gained. Oh, not the killjoys. So yeah, anyway, back to this. So you get some extra classes. You get some of the same stuff. Crusader, like I said, is the replacement for Paladin. Mage is pretty much like Wizard, but you get with a whole wider range of magic. Monk's the same. Necromancer is pretty much being the Wizard Necromancer, but without having to worry about other other classes. So you basically just start as a Necromancer right off the bat. Nightblade, which is kind of a sneaky warlock mage type of thing. Sneaky like a rogue warlock, which is kind of what my first guy Nihilus was about to be before that campaign kind of came to a close. You got Priest, which is your replaces your Cleric. Ranger is somewhat different. Rogue is a little bit different because now we have Thief, which is what the 5e Rogue was. We have Warden, which is the Druid. And then we have Warrior, which is the Fighter. And you can kind of use all armor and weapons. So you can pick anything you want. Sorcerer is kind of the same, but a little bit more expanded upon. Spell Sword is literally in the name, so you can use weapons and also magic. Or you can do no starting equipment, which I kind of did and kind of didn't for the first campaign, because in the first campaign it was just Tav and Joe as their characters, and I did start them out as prisoners because they were like level 1, which is them not having the equipment and being level 1 is kind of like I rationalized by being that they were imprisoned for several months. Which in the time span, which in the timeline of my campaign, takes place pretty much right after the main quest. Not right after, but like a few months after the main quest from Oblivion, from the 4th game. So you played that main quest and stopped the Oblivion Crisis. But while that was happening, a Breton and an Orc were sitting in the prison of sitting in the dungeon prison of a castle because of certain reasons, like with Tav's character. Tav's character, he was crossing the border, and when his things were being searched, there was skooma in his inventory, so which may or may not have been planted on him rather than him having it. So he he was falsely accused of smuggling skooma and other contraband. Meanwhile, Joe's character, the Orc, was just kind of a victim of racial profiling, and then he got locked away. So, in Elder Scrolls fashion, they were basically starting with nothing, escaping from a dungeon. And in fact, they were escaping with the help of the Adoring Fan, of all people. They were getting help from from this guy, the guy we all know and love. It's so fucking goofy. Oh, it's so great. This is community classes, which I'm not gonna worry about those. No one did the "Hey Hugh, you're finally awake" bit. No, no. It was more like they were kind of like waking up, and then the guards kind of giving them plates of slop to eat. Um, and then the adoring fan. So here's how. So how it went down was they were in the dungeon, and the guards kind of gave them their slop, and then the adoring fan, who was who was also imprisoned with them, what they weren't aware of, manages to snatch a key, and he managed to go in and help them get out. And as they were trying to escape, they one of them noticed that there was like kind of like a hollow wall. So when they broke it, it turned out to be a cave. And when they went through that cave, they then found their way through what was basically a rat and goblin infested cavern. And they've noticed that there was a lot of like food that was just kind of like food items and stuff that was scattered and stashed around. And earlier they noticed the guards were like complaining about the food of the castle, saying that it wasn't really tasting all that great. So they go through. They find some rusty items, some like old swords and stuff, and they start go through killing the goblins, and um, they even find a goblin because in Oblivion there's like a running bit of, oh yeah, look, there's a goblin here, and you find it, and it's just laying around a bunch of empty bottles of wine. It's like, oh, this goblin drank himself to death. And Joe's orc character was like, oh, he drank all the wine. So as they were kind of going through the cave and exploring around, they realized that they're starting to get suspicious of the adoring fan of the wood elf, and they were like kind of like agreeing on like, hey, the moment this guy starts kind of acting all weird, all funny, let's use a code word and then we'll strike. So eventually they managed to find their way into to a trap door that leads to the kitchen, and in that kitchen they find the chef, and then the fucking orc of all people manages to sneak up behind him and do a stealth takedown to knock him unconscious. And then they kind of sneak out of the kitchen. They find themselves in a dining room, or and then they kind of like find their way throughout the castle. And then they tried to do the bit where they knock out a guard, take his armor, and try to sneak out, but they were caught. Although fortunately for them, they were told that, oh yeah, no, actually you guys were actually supposed to be set free thanks to these guys. And it was like an imperial commander who's like yeah, I was told to get you guys out of jail for reasons. And also the adoring fan also gets grabbed and taken away from the castle to be taken to the imperial city prison instead, to be taken away. So so that was funny. That was a funny bit. So that was how that started out. Afterwards, and then I think it was session 2. The next few sessions, they left the castle. They got their at the end of first session, they did get their stuff back, the items that belonged to them, and which was their starting gear. So like I said, there was like a bit of like no starting gear, but they did have starting gear, and it was just the stuff that was kind of taken away from them when they were arrested. So now they go on their way, and they start leaving the castle. In fact, I think I can pull up the map. Okay, here we go. So this is just a general like gameplay map that can be used for the actual game itself. Who the fuck is slamming downstairs? Alright. Anyway. So yeah, we basically start ourselves over here in this castle, which in game is a castle that you can earn and you can basically get for free in DLC. It's part of the Fighters Stronghold DLC. which basically just comes with the game when you buy it on Steam because it's the Game of the Year edition. So they start out in this castle, and then eventually they made their way out. They're like, they're traveling a bit because they were told Tav's character Hannibal gets a letter saying that, hey, I paid for your release, and now I just need you to start building up a reputation before I start working with you. So they go ahead and leave. They're pointed to go to the city of Coral, which is right here. So they start heading out, and they pass by this mine, the pillaged mine. So that's where they head into next. And it's a mine that's just filled with goblins. So they go around killing a bunch of goblins until they find Kralos's character, an Argonian by the name of Walks on Thorns. And his whole deal was that the City Watch was told about the mine activity going on in this abandoned mine that was left behind. So he and some guards were going to investigate it, but one of the guards, who we have basically not retconned, but we basically said, oh yeah, it's Sweet Roll Andy. Sweet Roll Andy kind of said, hey, you go in there first. We'll send in backup. And then they didn't. They just basically abandoned him to be captured by the goblins. So at the end of the dungeon, they find him there. They release him, and then they manage to team up. And throughout the way, they started having kind of hallucinations while they're walking through the cave, or the mine, like Taz's character Hannibal. He starts to like kind of see his dead father, his dead drunk father, who he said died in a fire because he got drunk and passed out by like flames or something like that. He starts seeing visions of him, and then Joe's orc, Kurtgut, he called him, sees a pig who I'm sure you know what we're talking about. He's just like, oh, Mr. Pig. He's like, oh, leave me alone. And then in the cave, oh yeah, another thing. Walks on Thorns, Kralos's Argonian. He's secretly also a Sheogorath worshipper, because his sorcery is also a bit of like wild sorcery. So he's like seeing Sheogorath talking to him, be like, hey, you got to get up now. You're not going to be trapped in here forever, are ya? So yeah, so eventually Thorns comes to the conclusion that, maybe the reason why this mine was abandoned in the first place is because of the gas that's leaking through it in here, and it's making people hallucinate. So yeah, so they leave the mine. They're like, all right, let's go make our way back. So they start traveling. They head back to the city, get things under control. Tav and Joe's characters join the Fighters Guild, and also spend the night in some of the taverns. So there's two taverns. So there's the Oak and Corsair, and then there's the Grey Mare. So already judging from the size alone, you can already tell. Oh yeah, one's a higher end place, and the other's a little dingy, like cheap motel, basically. And then eventually the next journey they're on, because Thorns' character is a member of the Watch, he's told that, hey, there's this thing going on with this guy. People are having reports of seeing him in another city, and whenever they talk to him, he acts like he doesn't even know them. So I want you to talk to this guy and see what's going on, which, by the way, is an in-game quest. So I'm not gonna spoil anything, just in case any of the people that play my campaign are on stream. But they're like, hey, this guy, Reynald Germain, he's like he's this drunk guy, and I've seen him in Shaden Hall, but when I talk to him, he just acts like I'm a complete stranger. So they go talk to him, and he's like, "Oh, I've never been there once in my life. If you go find this imposter, you go tell him I'm very good at making things bad, making my things bad for myself, very much." So then Thorns is given the task of basically finding out who this is. So in the spirit of making sure the two other characters are kind of on the right track because they kind of were released from a prison, even if it wasn't really their fault. He was kind of just assigned to be their handler, just to see how they do because they're kind of new. They're new guys. They're outsiders. They're trying to basically learn whatever they're going to do. So he goes in. They go take a they go ahead and take a carriage. So they started traveling. So let's zoom out a bit. So they're traveling pretty much all throughout here. Spot the Imperial City, and then they do take a stop in a village. There are some encounters along the way. They do fight an imp. They do see some. They see some different sights here and there. Such as Oblivion Gates and stuff like that. So they stop in a village just for a bite to eat. And oh yeah, another thing to mention is that Tav's character Hannibal, he's a bit of a I guess what you could say is a bit of a Riz master, if you will. And he's like, "Oh yes, I very like to spend the night with you." Oh. But so as they take a stop in this town, they head into the inn just for a bite to eat. And there's like two dark elves sisters, and there's also their brother who runs the inn. And it's like the two sisters, like the whole thing is like, oh, they're all just like fucking hate each other. They're all just very vindictive and whatever. But I go ahead and Hannibal's like, "Oh, I will take both of you out on a date," and Thorns sort of facilitates, like, "Hey, maybe you should do, maybe he could take you to the city and see things there," and eventually it ends up becoming a double date because one of them picks the orc, Joe's character Kurgut. So they're like, "All right, it's a double date. Come back in a few days and we'll go with you." So it's like, okay. So there's that sort of thing set up. So they continue on their way, and then they kind of take a stop in this inn for the night, which is also where we kind of end session. And then continuing off of there, they have breakfast. Joe's character Kurgut, he just decides to like get drunk out of nowhere, and he's just like, "Oh yeah, I was just wanted to get drunk." There's a bit of some conversation sparking up, and then he walks on Thorns, Kralos's character. He kind of has a talk with a guard, and he's kind of doing some there's a little bit extra world building here and there, whatever. And eventually they continue on their way on the carriage, while Kurgut kind of just ends up being passed out drunk on there, up until they kind of encounter some skeletons that they just pick into a fight with. So they go fight them, and then they continue on their way to Shaden Hall, which is right over here. It's kind of got a bit of a little a river running through it, and this is eventually where they meet the supposed imposter, the guy who looks like Reynold Germain. Upon meeting him, they realize that, oh wait, I'm not Reynold. No, that's not Reynold Germain. That's Gilbert Germain. And it turns out, oh, this is the guy's twin brother. So there's that. I'm not gonna say anything about the quest itself, but But immediately, because Walks on Thorns is kind of like a Columbo caricature, he's like, oh well, is that so? That's really strange that you never mentioned. Blah, 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 blah. You know, he's already immediately sussed out about it. But that is this. We did end our last session around here, and currently we're doing a thing where we're kind of taking 2 weeks on a session and then passing it on to others to run their own campaign. So we've just had one with After Mine. We had one with 2 weeks with a session with Joe, and we had one with Kralos, which was a superhero themed tabletop, which is based off of an old Marvel RPG. And currently, Tav is going to run one about the Electric State, which is actually a movie, which is having a movie coming out sometime, I think this year, something like that. So yeah, there's that. But I think once we do 2 sessions of that, then we're gonna go back to my story, because we did also gain a fourth player, who was the guy that who was initially part of our group, who joined on after Tarumo left, you left, to kind of be like kind of our other third slash fourth slash third member, in a way. So, and he back when I was already planning this, when because this was supposed to have a lot more players, before everyone kind of dropped out, but now we're because he did make a character, so I still have that. So he is going to be part of this group, and then once I can get that rolling, then I can discuss with him what's going to kind of go on with his character and get him up to speed. So that's pretty much where we are so far. The main goal is to bring the twin brother, from Shadenhall to Coral, so that they can meet. But also there's there's also the double date that's supposed to happen, where they're gonna take two Dark Elf sisters and take them to the Imperial City, which is also what I've got some stuff in the works for, in terms of things that are gonna happen. So let's zoom out a bit there. That's a little bit much. Can I like just no? No, it's. Ooh, no. I don't want that. No, close that. Because the Imperial City is kind of like where it's happening, and we're also kind of gonna see a bit of some of the aftermath too, especially with the fact that the Oblivion Crisis has happened. So we'll be seeing kind of a very, post-crisis emperorless empire, and how things are running there, because of the fact that there is no emperor, there is a power vacuum, and all we have is the Elder Council, who are kind of facilitating things in the meantime while they try to find a new emperor, because of the fact that not only was there, the emperor killed, but all of his heirs, legitimate and illegitimate, were killed. So there was literally no one else to take the throne anymore. And with the last actual Septim Emperor dead, that kind of, especially at that time, it left a lot of things up in the air for what's going to happen. And then, because it was Skyrim that was then be like, oh yeah, so this is what happened to the Empire. The Empire is now a shadow of its former self, and a lot of people have left the Empire because they don't have the same strength as they used to have. And I do have some plans for what things that will happen Um, not through everywhere, but at least in a few notable places, especially like Kvatch, because um, this place was kind of like basically destroyed by the Oblivion Crisis. So there's a few other places, and then eventually once the party kind of wrap up whatever they're doing in Cyrodiil, they are eventually gonna take things to Skyrim, and also High Rock, in a couple other places here and there. So there's a few other places. What's that? There's a lot of other interesting items here, so we can just go through some weapons. So a lot of weapons basically kind of work the same way, and there's a lot of the same weapon categories. There's also other weapons. Why are there a lot of Japanese weapons? It was because of the Akaviri, and the Akaviri are kind of like the literal Asia of Elder Scrolls, because they come from Akavir, which is a land far to the east of Tamriel. Um, and they brought over weapons like katanas and stuff. That's why you have stuff like katanas that the blades use, and daikatanas and all this other stuff. And then there's also extra stuff when it comes to bonus weapons. So, material of the weapon sometimes will play a part to what they will do. So, magical creatures like imps and werewolves have resistances to iron and steel. There's silver, which there's no like bonuses, but I did add that, okay, silver is going to do extra damage to undead and other sort of supernatural things like ghosts and spirits, just because of the whole connotation of silver being, special. As well as having other sorts of. So we also got mithril and adamantium, which is interesting, but those are technically things that do exist in Elder Scrolls lore, especially because there's a place called the Adamantine Tower, which is this big ass tower in High Rock, which has kind of been a bit of a special thing in lore. But, we also get stuff like Dwarven, Orcish, Day Jerk, and Dragonbone. Yeah, we also get extra sorts of whip is. It's weird. Okay, whip is counted as a hand-to-hand weapon. That's interesting. I'm not sure why, but claws and stuff like that, and knuckles. I pretty much understand why that counts. But we also get other sorts of what is it? So we got marksman weapons. So we got blowguns, crossbows, darts, longbows, shortbows, slings, and nets. And we also get we also get stuff like bolas, chakrams, and throwing stars, which throwing stars have been kind of notorious in the third game, Morrowind. There's throwing stars you could get, and you can use them. I mean, you used to have javelins and stuff too that you could throw in Morrowind. It's like, so there's this thing that's known in Elder Scrolls games, like the mainline games, and how each progression, there's like a lot of streamlining. I mean, Arena was kind of bare bones, not really bare bones. It was kind of like it's an RPG dungeon crawler from the 90s that you run on DOSBox. So there's a bit of what you could consider jank by modern standards, but back then that was like the standard. There wasn't really any deviation. Daggerfall, the second game, added a lot of depth to certain things, like having legal systems, banking, and also time limits on the actual main quest. Like if you did not complete the main quest in enough time, literally game over. And likewise, with the legal system, you commit a crime, you could actually, you could literally like Better Call Saul lawyer it out, and either reduce your sentence or walk away free from whatever crime that was. With banking, you couldn't carry you could only carry so much amount of gold, so you had to sometimes take some of it and take it to a bank and get a note that sort of means that, hey, you have this much gold, I want to use this for this purchase, which is kind of literally real life. And there's a lot of other in-depth stuff that Daggerfall added. Morrowind was still pretty in-depth of a game, but going from Daggerfall to Morrowind, there is a little bit of streamlining when it comes to certain gameplay elements. But however, Morrowind was still a bit more of an in-depth game, because you had stuff like you could not join every guild. You could only join specific ones, because if you join, like, say if you join one of the main houses of Morrowind, then you could either be marked as an enemy or not be trusted by one of the other main houses. So you had to really pick which faction you were going to be a part of, and certain things that you do could actually influence the outcome of certain quest lines. Oblivion is really where things really start to get start getting, like, was it really streamlined and kind of made more casual. With certain gameplay elements being like removed, and a lot of other things being just straight up simplified. But you still had a lot of certain elements. You still had attributes which would affect your character's abilities, and you still had things like actually doing tasks for your guild before you rise through the ranks, instead of Skyrim's like, oh yeah, you completed one quest for us, now you're already upper rank. Okay, you just completed this quest line of like 5 or 6 quests. Okay, now you're the leader of the guild. It's like, okay. Also, there was no consequence of joining all the guilds. You could join every guild for Oblivion and Skyrim. You could just, like, you could be part of the Fighters Guild and the Mages Guild, and then join the Thieves Guild and the Dark Brotherhood and all that. So blah 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 blah. Well, I think Oblivion there might be consequences, but with Skyrim, like, yeah, you could straight up join each of the guilds. You could join Companions, Cauldron Winterhold, Dark Brotherhood, Thieves Guild, and then do the main quest, and then join the Dawn Guard and all that stuff. It's like, you're not really refining what your character is, especially because in Skyrim, there are no attributes, so there's nothing that predetermines what your class is going to be. I mean, because before that, you had specifically what your class is going to be. What are the things your character is specialized in? In Skyrim, it literally comes down to just pick your race, optional, and just play however you want. Which, I mean, it is kind of open to where you can do other sorts of things. Like, it's just that the progression is different depending on which character you do. Like, say you want to do a mage, but you don't pick a high elf or you don't pick a Breton. So and instead you decide on picking a Nord or an Orc. You're gonna have a little bit of a disadvantage at first, because you have to level up those skills in order to be more proficient at them, so you can progress better. But but eventually down the line, like, you can just master every skill. Especially was after the legendary update, which was kind of like one of the final updates before before the eventual re-release into the special edition. Um, the legendary update was basically saying, okay, so you maxed out your skill tree, you got your destruction 100 or whatever like that. Now you can restart it at base level, which is 15, and then you can go ahead and redo it all again. Or I think it was 10. No, okay, I think, was it 5? I think no, I think the lowest your skill. Oh yeah, it resets it to 15, I think. And then you gain all your perks back. The perks that you spent for that. If you use any perks for that skill tree. If you manage to get a skill to level 100 without using any perks on it, you don't really get anything back from it, other than the chance to level that up again. In fact, let's see. Okay, yeah, it does reset it to 15. I just want to see an image of someone who has... Okay, so... Okay, so take this for example. Let's open it right here. So when you reset a skill, you gain an icon next to it, along with the number. So this person's level 70. They've leveled up and reset smithing twice already. Which you can technically do for every skill, and if you use the right methods in vanilla Skyrim, you can basically get yourself to leveling everything to 100, and then resetting them all to 15, and then going ahead and getting all the perks back that you used, and do whatever. Another thing too is the Dragonborn DLC. As when you complete that main quest, you basically unlock the ability to respec. So what you can do is use it's the cost of a dragon soul. So you do have to go around killing some dragons for depending on how many times you want to respec. So basically you have a skill and you've got a bunch of perks in it, like this. You can go ahead and at the cost of a dragon soul, gain back all the perks you used on it without touching the level. So you can keep, like you can see, you can keep heavy armor here at 100, but take back all the perks you spent on it, and then you can instead apply it to another skill that you might have 100 or something like that, and basically just change what your character is. This is what I did on one of my PS3 characters, where I made a guy, and my intention for him was to be like this sort of paladin type of character, because of the because of the Dawnguard DLC. I wanted him to use sun spells and fight and slay the undead. But because of the PS3 having such a funky separate operating system because of the Blu-ray features, people, Bethesda had to struggle trying to figure out how to get the game to work on the PS3, which is why that DLC was delayed for the longest time. Like Xbox, there was that deal with Microsoft where, games DLC get to come out first on Xbox, and that's what they did. And so, Dawnguard came out first, and then Hearthfire, then Dragonborn, and then PC got it. PS3 still got nothing. And then it was up until like the ending bit of Skyrim's original support, because the Bethesda was working on Fallout 4 at the time. They were like, okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna release the DLCs, but backwards. So you're gonna get Dragonborn, Hearthfire, and then Dawnguard. So by then, my character had played through. He played through the main story, and then he played through um, the Dragonborn quest line. And once I unlocked the ability to respec, I'm like, huh, you know, maybe I could play my guy as like a instead of a heavy armor spellcaster, I could play as him as a mage or something. And then eventually, like, my headcanon for the guy was like, oh, he ended up getting corrupted because then by the time the Dawnguard DLC came out, he had basically become evil. So he ended up joining the vampires and being this evil spellcasting guy uh, with all this like extra power because of certain exploits in the vanilla game that could still be used if you don't. It would still be used if you play it, and like even on the Steam version, if you don't use the unofficial patch, and you basically get away with you know extra power. So there's that. So it was actually really fun. It was actually really funny. I made this guy who's like he was going to be this you know holy knight of light, and then he ended up becoming this dark sorcerer of evil that was also a vampire. So that was really fun. I forgot where I was going with that. Oh yeah, so yeah, the game's becoming all streamlined and stuff. Yeah, so basically Skyrim, you could eventually just make an actual like jack of all trades, master of everything eventually, because not only were you able to you know continuously level your perks and go past the level limit of level 81, um, which was getting every single skill at a level 100. Then once, because then by then you could go ahead and not respec. You can go ahead and reset each skill and do it all over again, basically for continuous leveling. Um, I personally think it's kind of redundant because you know you can because you know going so far that much in level, like you know, it's like why continuously optimize or not optimize? Why continuously like you know min maxing and all that stuff? Why like refining everything that you do when you could just be like, you know, hey, I'm gonna just do all this, you know, and be at the and then you know finish when I say I'm finished. Which for me is like, okay, I'm bored of this character. I want to try and I want to do a new playstyle now. Which many such cases for my PS3, PS4, and PC, both versions of PC, Legendary and Special Edition or Anniversary Edition characters. Well, we're not going to get into that. So yeah, that's pretty much kind of the gist of what I've been doing um, with this tabletop. I've got my guys, and I've got them kind of on a journey, and they've got a few subplots that they're gonna both you know play out, and also end up running into with some very familiar characters. Which I'm sure for them they're gonna you know they're either gonna get a kick out of it or they're gonna be like, really, Saber, really, why did you do this? Why did you do this to us? But, you know, I am the DM of this game, so you know what I say is law. So this is for that. Another thing I've been doing too is I've been working on maps. I've been using this tool called Dungeon Scrawl. Let me. Um, basically, is this sort of like, oh, here, you know, you basically kind of map out a dungeon, and you know, make it look however you'd like. You know, you can do other sorts of things to it, like. Ooh, you know, I'm doing this. You know, you can really go in depth with stuff because not only you get you know, you can do this, but you can also also just throw in objects and just really make things like as customized to your heart's content. And I made a few maps of this. So I'm gonna go ahead and refresh it. No, that's not what I want. Okay. So let's go to. We got some of my maps. My maps. Let's see, is it this one? Yeah, it's this one. Okay. So. Oh, that's not it. Gooey. Alright. So I've got this. This is kind of one of the maps I've made. This is sort of like interior areas. So we've got like this area, which is one of the taverns. So you got like the entrance here. You kind of walking around like, hey, what's going on? You know, you'll get some people kind of around here, and then you walk up these stairs, and it's going to take you to this upstairs area. So then, oh, you got some rooms here. Okay, this area is fucking okay. All right. Ah, no. Okay. So you got one area here. This is like first floor. Then you got second floor, and then third floor. You've got another sort of area. You got different spaces for a lot of things to walk around, and you just got like your simple one-story, just like this is just a general shop, general store, or you've got like the simple tavern with the little upstairs loft. Go back. And you got your blacksmith area. So you got some areas, you got some places to work with. Let's go to one of the others. Ooh. Okay, this was a complex one. This was one of the dungeons. One of the dungeons. And I'm probably just made it too big. Hello? I assume. I guess it doesn't want to work. What the hell? What the hell? Okay, no idea what's like. What's that? Okay, here we go. Now it's working. All right. So this was the mine that the fellas or at least the duo went into. So they started going through here, picking fights with some goblins and kind of going through. Motherfucker. They're picking some fights with some goblins around here, right? And let's do 50. Okay. We're picking some fights with the goblins around here, going through, fighting different ones, and then down here is where Kralos's character, Walks on Thorns, was lurking. He was kind of captured, and he ended up here. And then they came down this hallway, and then they confronted the last of the goblins. And so they're like, hey, you know, oh yeah, I was left in here. I was trapped in here. But thanks for rescuing me. So then they go through. You go in and leave. Joe's character, the orc Kirka, he was also doing this bit where he was like, he took a barrel and he started stuffing it full of old mining equipment and a bunch of like the goblins' rusty weapons, and he was just like kind of just tossing them in the barrel and just kind of rolling it. And he rolled it all the way back to the city where he took it to the blacksmith. And it's like, hey, I want to sell all of this stuff. I want to get some money. I want to get some gold out of this. Okay, I'm not gonna open it there because I need to switch the tabs it's in because I just need to. It's the orbs. Oh. Wait, no, where is it? I found it. I found it. Oh my god, it's gonna be so great. Oh, it's gonna be so great. Oh, it's gonna be the funniest bit when it happens. All right, source that. Okay, leave me alone. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. So let's see. Let's go through some other stuff on here. So backgrounds are overall the same. You can use the same sort of backgrounds from from 5e, but there's also extra backgrounds that you can use um, that are from the books that come with from this mode. So you get arena combatant. So you get athletics and performance as your proficiencies, as well as a gaming set or musical instrument, and then so you get it's like a signature weapon is inexpensive, symbol of your gladiatorial style, personalized gift from a fan, common set of clothes, 50 pouches. You got company clerk, so you're like a part of a money group. So you get persuasion, insight. I believe Hannibal Tav's character is the company clerk, so he has persuasion and insight proficiencies. And he also has land vehicles or sea vehicles. So he's also been the guy that's been driving the horse-drawn carriage throughout the past couple of sessions. So he's sort of he's the Ryan Gosling I drive sort of bit. So there's Dark Brotherhood Slayer. So you get Deception and Stealth, as well as Poisoner's Kit and Disguise Kit. So if you want to start your character right off as a edgy Dark Brotherhood assassin, you can go ahead and go with that. There's Fighters Guild Associate. So, remember Fighters Guild sitting a hunting trap. You get Footpad, so this is your thief character starting thing. Sleight of hand stealth, thieves tools. You speak thieves can't. You get your Legion auxiliary, so if you want your guy to be a soldier. You get athletics history. Mage initiate, so you can start your guy as a mage. And you also get some extra stuff from the I think from one of the other extra books. So this is from Merkmeyer. So this is from the Argonian book, extra book. You also get Temple Initiate, so you can have your divine character. But otherwise, you can also still just use the same same 5e backgrounds for your characters, which two of them I've already used. The Kraulos' character and Joe's character. Both of them picked City Watch, but Kraulos picked Investigator for his Argonian, which is kind of ironic that he's called himself an investigator. oh, I miss Ame, man. But yeah. You'll get some extra stuff here. So instead of just going with like the same old backgrounds like from 5e, you can go ahead and just use these ones. Oh, here's something. Birth signs. So Elder Scrolls has its own like constellation type bit, and in lore that's does actually give a bit of some extra gameplay benefits. So you do get some of these depending on which month you were born. You get a different constellation, or if you roll doubles. So you have to roll two d12s, and each number will fall on it. So these all basically kind of in lore it's just like extra like word salad, you know, it's just extra stuff, but the actual constellations themselves will actually give you special abilities. So let's see, what do the boys got? What do the boys? I know. Okay. I believe. Okay. Kralos's character, Walks in Thorns, has the Apprentice, and you're weakened to one type of magical damage, driven by rolling it. So he picked being weak to fire, which is kind of funny, with how he's also a fire mage or a fire sorcerer, so he'll use flames and stuff, but he's also weak to fire. I don't remember what the others picked. I might have to double check on their things, which if I do, I'm gonna have to open another page. Flashbang. It signed me out? How dare you? Oy. Alright, so let's see. What's okay, let me double check some of the dudes. What was some of their signs, if they wrote them down? Okay. Okay. So, okay. Joe's character Kurgut has the Steed Stone, so he gets his endurance. Endurance increased by 1, and he gets 10 extra feet of speed. Let's look at Hannibal. He picked the serpent. He picked the serpent stone. Interesting. Death destruction, bring destruction to others. Use your power to create the following effects. As an action, you cure yourself from one non-magical disease and dispel one magical effect from yourself. As an action, you can touch a creature and infect them with a slow but potent poison. You instantly deal 1d4 poison damage as additional 1d4 poison damage at the start of each turn. Next minute. Ignores resistances and damage increased where you reach 5th, 11th, and 17th level. Once you use this ability, you can't use it again until the next dawn. Okay. Interesting. That's the one he picked, huh? Or is that the one he rolled? So let's go to Kralos's character. I believe it was the Apprentice. No, it was the Lord. He picked the Lord Stone, or the Lord constellation. Okay, yeah, okay. So it still comes with the weakness of fire, but he also gets Blood of the North. As an action, you regain hit points equal to twice your level plus your endurance modifier. If the amount of hit points exceeds your maximum hit point maximum, you gain the remainder as temporary hit points, which last up to an hour. Interesting. Okay. So yeah, all of these, there's sort of like just extra little bits of like if you want like blessings or curses or something like that to kind of make your character a little bit more interesting. A lot of them are just like very straightforward, like, oh, the lady, your willpower and endurance attributes are increased by 1, or you get the tower, so you can cast the knock spell without expending magicka, or as well as you can, when you take damage, you can reflect some or all of the damage back to the attacker. Damage is equal to 1d6 and it increases every level. What was knock? Choose an object you see in range. The object can be a door, box, chest, whatever that can held by undead. Give me. Huh. Okay. All right. So, okay, that's what it does. It's basically like a lockpick spell, except with extra reach. Now let's see the new guy, the Dark Elf. Let's see what he picked. Okay, he picked the apprentice. Alright, he's the one who picked the apprentice and made himself weak against cold damage. Interesting. Okay. Alright. Very, very interesting. Okay, we'll close that. Ooh. Alright. So that's birth signs. So birth signs also add some extra stuff. So factions and guilds. So we got Mages Guild, we got Golden Coast Trading Company. Ah! I just punched my desk. Ow. Right at the edge of the desk. Dawn Guard, well, I'm not really going to be using them. At least not in my timeline. Because the timeline of my game is like literally 400 years before Skyrim itself. Like, I think Skyrim is 401. So, we've got like a long time before any of that stuff. So, pretty much the information in Skyrim is not as relevant in the game. What are you doing, Snowy? Hello. What are you rubbing your face on everything? Alright. it's not going to be relevant to mine. Not, well, not yet. Imperial Legion. Factions. So all right now all we've got is just the Fighters Guild, which 2 of the party members are part of. There's also the Mages Guild, where it's a possibility that I might have some characters joining this, but we'll see when that comes down to it. So yeah, I'm just waiting on when I get to run again, so that then we can continue with this story and see where that's gonna go. I think maybe after a few sessions, I'll do another stream discussing what sort of things have happened within within the timeline, and just see where things go from there. So I think that's gonna wrap up stream today. Or tonight, technically, depending on what time of night it is for whoever's, or at least, you know, depending on what time it is for whoever's watching. But yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and call it for the night, and I'll